February 26, 1945. Iwo Jima Volcano Islands. The sky is the color of ash, and the ground is ground glass, volcanic sand that swallows boots and blood in the same breath. The 4th Marine Division has spent a week fighting for every yard of this sulfurous rock, where Japanese tunnels twist underfoot like veins inside a corpse. Every bunker knocked out by grenades comes back to life the next hour, the Japanese moving unseen through their buried world to fire from new mouths in the hill. Private First Class Don Hardy, Company C, 24th Marines, crouches behind a shattered rock face near the foot of Hill 382, one of Iwo's volcanic ridges. His Browning automatic rifle burns his palms, the sling blackened by heat. "We hit that pillbox 3 times, he growls. "They're still pouring lead." Sergeant Klein spits volcanic grit from between his teeth, squinting toward the bunker just 40 yards ahead, a slit of darkness coughing tracer fire. "Infantry can't get close," Klein mutters to the radio man. "Get a Zippo up here." Minutes later you hear it before you see it, a rattling roar unlike any tanks you've known. The M4A3R3 Sherman rolls up through the sand, 75mm gun stubby, the turret's coaxial hull fitted with a thick nozzle sheathed in blackened steel. Painted on the glassy in bold white letters are 3 words: "Comes a hot time." Corporal Dave Sumner sits crouched within the turret, one hand on the valve lever that controls a pressure system fed from 3 armored cylinders of Navy napalm mixture. Inside the hull, the flame fuel sloshes when the tank lurches over rocks. The crew calls it liquid fear, and everyone who rides inside knows the irony, that this slow, lumbering Sherman is as dangerous to its operators as to its enemies. Over the intercom, "Target?" Klein's voice crackles. "Pillbox, front 40 yards, charge that son of a bitch." "Roger that." Sumner flips the pressure igniter. An electrical hum fills the turret, followed by a hiss of vapor. Outside, the flame projector spits once, twice. Then a tongue of fire 50 yards long arcs into the bunker slit, a gout of red and yellow rolling forward like a solid thing. The blast makes men instinctively duck though they're far behind it. The heat sears skin even at that distance. Inside the bunker, air becomes fuel. The first jet of burning napalm splashes against the concrete wall, then bends around it, seeking oxygen and flesh. The second shot hits the aperture squarely, a great rush of black smoke follows and the sound changes, from firing to screaming to nothing. The ground quivers under the concussion of its own trapped air igniting. Hardy flinches and clutches his helmet as the smell of scorched sulfur and something human whips down the trench line. "That's it," Klein says hoarsely, staring. "They're done." 5 minutes later, the Sherman lurches forward again, its flame projector dripping molten residue. Marines climb out of foxholes, eyes wide, faces gray in the firelight glare still dancing along the bunker seams. "Jesus," one whispers, "they cook him alive." Sumner hears that through his open hatch, wipes soot off his goggles and mutters, "Rather them than us." He swings the nozzle toward another mouth of rock. "Next one." The Zippo crawls forward. Each burst lasts about 2 seconds, enough to clear a cave of oxygen and life alike. 30 gallons of liquid fire per minute, launched under compressed nitrogen through the coaxial barrel. Flames bounce off stone, curl into openings Marines hadn't even known were there. Behind the tank, the infantry moves up under its ghost of protection. Someone finally says what they were all thinking. Never seen anything like it. But the tank crews don't cheer much. They know what happens if one armor-piercing round hits the wrong place. They watch each gout tear out of the nozzle and pray none of the pressurized tanks rupture. The tankers call it riding a bomb with a pilot's seat. 2 days later, on the south slope of Mount Suribachi, Lieutenant Colonel Justice Chambers of the 3rd Battalion, 25th Marines, watches a Zippo clear a cave network that artillery has failed to touch. The Japanese inside have honeycombed these cliffs for months. Some tunnels run under his own headquarters. When the flame tank fires, the vents along the ridge belch smoke and sparks like volcanic eruptions. "It's the only thing that works," Chambers says almost to himself. He lowers his binoculars, eyes haunted by what he's seen and by what keeps him alive. By early March, Iwo Jima's surface is a scab of burned bunkers. Marines and Navy Seabees count 68 flame tanks active at one point or another, each one escorted by riflemen who move beside them like bodyguards, because a tank that burns others so well draws fire from every direction. Even knocked out, they remain weapons, fuel erupting in tidal waves when hit. When gunfire stops, the flame crews climb out of their tanks, red-faced from heat that seeps through armor. The black sand steams around them, cratered and glassy. Infantry crawl past, not sure whether to laugh or avert their eyes. "You boys came too late for Tarawa," one sergeant says to a soot-coated tanker. "But right on time for hell." April 20th, 1945. Okinawa. Rain lashes limestone cliffs like needles, and the wind carries the smell of mud, coral, and death. The 6th Marine Division is fighting through the approaches to Kakaza Ridge, the gateway to the Shuri Line, where the Japanese 32nd Army sits buried in rock as if carved there by premonition. This is not a battlefield, it is an island-sized fortress. Every gully hides a gun, every cliff mouth a tunnel extending hundreds of meters under the surface. Morning mist curls over the rice paddies as 2 M4A3 POA-CWS H1 flame tanks of the 713th Flamethrower Tank Battalion grind forward, 75mm guns replaced by the stub-nose projector and a coaxial trickle of flame fuel waiting behind a pressure valve. Marines call them Zippos as if their hissing roar were just a big lighter in a giant's hand. Lieutenant Charles "Gunny" Reynolds leads one of them, Sherman "Burn Baby Burn," through knee-deep sludge. His driver mutters through the intercom, "Feels like driving on sponge cake with landmines baked inside." Reynolds doesn't answer. He's scanning for shape, shadow, movement, anything that hints at death under the hillside. The Japanese defenders of the Shuri line have learned from Iwo Jima. There are few above-ground bunkers here. The guns are vented from tunnels, artillery rolled forward on wooden rails, fired and rolled back before American batteries can answer. The first bursts of flame hit nothing visible, vanishing into dripping earth. For a moment, it seems the fire throwers are useless in rain. Then the hillside coughs blood. Fire jets down a vent shaft unseen until it fills with napalm, the mixture splattering through cave openings the way a torch drips wax. Secondary explosions roll underground, steam and smoke burst through fissures between the coral. One Marine kneeling nearby feels the ground vibrate under his palms, hears muffled screams turning to a drawn-out howl that no wind can carry away. Reynolds hears the infantry officer at his flank over the net. "That does it. Keep pouring it in." He adjusts for elevation, depresses the trigger. The flame arcs through drizzle, a liquid meteor against the sky. Each shot lasts less than 3 seconds, but the light fills the valley. Mud reflects orange. The air is greasy with vaporized fuel. Behind the tanks, Marines of the 22nd Regiment move up in sections, their faces lit from below by fire that paints them like figures in an underworld mural. They throw satchel charges into holes that still breathe flame. Rain hiss quenches the edges, but not enough. Underneath, everything still burns. A radio operator near the command jeep records his own disbelief. Flame tanks and bulldozers working together. Caves collapse like lungs punched shut. Near noon, infantry find one of the tunnel mouths still intact. Inside they see stacked mortar rounds. The Japanese had stored them too close to the heat. When one cooks off, it sets off the rest. The blast ejects bodies and rock 20 feet into the air. The Zippo crew stops its engine for a moment and stares. Rain keeps falling. Smoke hangs low, trapped by humidity. The Marines advance yard by yard through terrain that can no longer be described as soil. Shots echo through coral ridges already cracked from flame. The Japanese still fire, snipers from vents, machine gunners crawling out of collapsed tunnels to die in the open. Yet their defenses, the elaborate networks that survived months of bombardment, begin to collapse not from shells but from heat. A corporal writes later in his pocket diary, "They die in their holes, and if they come out, they're shadows. We used to talk about the smell. Now we don't." By evening the ridge smolders. Tanks park in place because their engines overheat when coated with napalm residue. Marines crouch in rain-filled craters to rest, eyes rimmed red from smoke and exhaustion. A few joke half-heartedly about the Zippos, calling them angels with bad breath. Yet none of them stays too close to the tank at night. Every man knows that a single lucky mortar round could turn the angel into a pyre. In the command dugout, Colonel John Lander, who has watched the entire attack through binoculars that fog and refog with mist, sets them down and says quietly to his S3, "Those flame tanks, we don't take ground without them anymore." 2 weeks later at Sugar Loaf Hill, Marines prove him right again. 4 days they've charged that bare rise covered with machine gun crossfire and lost hundreds. The Japanese positions seem immortal until the flame tanks roll forward behind artillery smoke. At 60 yards the nozzles roar. Sheets of fire carve down trenches, curling into the hill's natural cave system. What begins as a hill turns into a kiln. From the observation post, a war correspondent watching through field glasses whispers, "It isn't fighting anymore. It's erasure." By dusk the hill is theirs. But the Zippos that made it possible are charred almost black, side armor matte with soot, flame nozzles glowing dull orange. 2 sit knocked out near the crest, still burning from inside, crews lost to the thing they wielded. In the days that follow, Japanese survivors from the ridge crawl out, skin blue from suffocation. They point south toward the Shuri defenses still standing. They plead for water, sometimes for the mercy of another shot, and the Marines who've learned too much about mercy on Okinawa hand them nothing. By June the island is ash and coral dust. Thousands of caves are sealed by bulldozers that push collapsed rock over the fire-blackened openings. The crews of the 713th and 4th Tank Battalion sit on their tracks beside their machines, exhausted, knowing the Pacific still stretches ahead of them. Someone lights a cigarette from a Zippo tank's still-warm nozzle and mutters, "From Tarawa to here, we learned how to burn a war to the ground." He flicks the match away. Flames bloom for a moment on the muddy ground, then gutter out in rain that smells of smoke.